I've said in previous videos that there are lessons hidden in everything and you just have to find them. So it should go without saying that it's possible to pull life lessons from just about any media that you consume. Sure, this might be more obvious with certain books, shows, or movies, but stories, regardless of their form they're delivered in, have some sort of lesson that can be applied to everyday life. And Dragon Ball Z is no exception. It's no secret how iconic and impactful the anime was from a pop culture aspect, and I've seen plenty of people mention how beneficial the show was in teaching them the importance of training and pushing past your limits. But for the sake of this video, I figured we could try something different. Rather than focusing on the lessons that have been said before, I figured we could relate Dragon Ball Z to one of the most popular non-fiction books ever sold. A book that's sometimes described as a book for narcissists or sociopaths. Well, which book is that? So for a show that focuses so heavily on strength and power, I think the obvious pick here would have to be 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Let's take a look at how one of the most popular non-fiction books is showcased in one of the most popular animes ever made. This is Dragon Ball Z and the 48 Laws of Power. As I mentioned earlier, the 48 Laws of Power is often branded as a book for sociopaths and or manipulators who only want to use others for their own personal gain. But Robert Greene has mentioned on several occasions that these laws have more to do with the dynamics of power that are all around us, but aren't often talked about. And that's because it's uncomfortable to think about the fact that a lot of these laws apply to your everyday person, although for sure they're more prominent in power-hungry people. And this leads us to Frieza. When it comes to villains, Frieza is as selfish, manipulative, and power-hungry as they get. He's always got his own interests at heart, and he doesn't really care about destroying anyone who gets in his way. But one of his biggest flaws is that his own ego has a chokehold on him, which is why I think these two laws are the best applicable to his character. Going back to this interview with Robert Greene, let's see what he had to say about law number 1.
So law number 1 is never outshine the master. And the idea is that if you try too hard to impress your boss or the person above you, you're liable to make them feel insecure. You're going to trip on their ego and something bad will happen to you.
And this is why it's important to list out rules like this, because whether you want to acknowledge them or not, these dynamics are playing out in the world all around us. And when it comes to examples, Frieza is as good as it gets. At one point, Frieza was well aware that he was one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, being in the universe. He has an obvious god complex and views everyone else as inferior to him. And there's even a few times in the show where he reminds his own lackeys that he's the one in charge, and that to him, they're all meaningless and easily replaceable. For starters, when we're introduced to Frieza, he doesn't really do much. He makes his soldiers look for the Dragon Balls, which he is more than capable of doing, and allows his soldiers to do his dirty work by fighting Gohan, Krillin, and Vegeta. But what about the first law? Never outshine the master. Well, in the clip I'm about to show you, Frieza and his soldiers are on planet Namek, looking for the Dragon Balls. He finds out that one of his soldiers claims to have killed Vegeta without retrieving the Dragon Ball that he had in his possession. Let's see how this scene plays out, and pay attention to Frieza's words.
One villager who survived the attack, but I dealt with him, filthy scum.
You imbecile. You disposed of the only witness. Frieza? There are a few things I despise more than a minion who takes it upon himself to make executive decisions. Zarbon, if Vegeta is dead, then...
See, regardless of the outcome, Frieza would still hate the fact that one of his minions was acting above his pay grade. As I mentioned earlier, the 48 Laws of Power don't solely apply to villains. In fact, a lot of these rules can actually help you succeed in life while becoming a better person. And we don't have to look any further than Gohan and Mr. Satan as shining examples of what to do, and also what not to do. Knowing what you know about Gohan and Mr. Satan, you might have some guesses as to who's able to successfully implement one of the 48 Laws of Power. But that might change once you see that the law I'm talking about is law number 5. During the Cell Saga, we get introduced to Mr. Satan, who has a reputation of being the strongest fighter on the planet. Now of course, we as the viewer know that that's not really the case, but the reason Mr. Satan is able to maintain this image of himself is due to how much he values his reputation. After all, it's the reason for all of his fame and fortune. And time again, he finds excuses and comes up with lies to justify whatever weird predicament that he's in. Now sure, this offers some comedic relief to what could be an otherwise tense scene, but his success in guarding his reputation is actually the reason he's able to save the world. If we fast forward to the Majin Buu arc, Mr. Satan is still doing his best to guard his reputation at all costs. Except this time we actually see the payoff of it. Towards the end of the series, when Goku is going to unleash his final spirit bomb on Kid Buu, it's Mr. Satan's words of encouragement that push everyone who's still alive to offer some energy for the final blow. Before him, Vegeta's unable to successfully do this because he doesn't really have that reputation with these people. In the end, Mr. Satan's able to use his reputation to influence others into doing what he wants, and that's how he's able to contribute in saving the world. Okay, so we talked about what to do, but what about what not to do? And sadly, this is where one of my favorite characters comes in. In this regard, Gohan is the complete opposite of Mr. Satan. He quickly trashes his own reputation of being one of the strongest fighters after the Cell Saga. Even after passing his father in terms of power, he quickly gives it up when he begins to pursue his education. Sure, you could argue that it wasn't very important to him to begin with, or that he never really needed the reputation, but that's not the point. Not only is Gohan's fall from grace brought up again later in the series,
pathetic. Barely a fraction of the strength he used to take on Cell.
But it's obvious that by this point, nobody takes him seriously anymore. His reputation amongst the other fighters was that he was one of the best of the best. How else would you describe a child who's able to beat Cell when no one else can? So when he let himself go, the drastic difference in his skill and power levels was jarring for a lot of people. And unfortunately for him, his reputation will forever be tainted. Although Dragon Ball Z had its silly moments, I always believed that there were plenty of life lessons that could be extracted and applied to our own situations. You don't have to look far to see the important role the anime and manga have played in people's lives. So that's why I want to end the video off by asking you, the viewer, what are some of the most important lessons that you've pulled from Dragon Ball Z? I'm always reading the comments, so make sure to leave your thoughts and opinions below. And if you made it this far, I'd really appreciate it if you can go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe for more videos like this. There's still plenty of laws that are present throughout the story, but I didn't want the video to be 30 minutes long. So that being said, if you guys want to see more ways that the anime shows some of the lessons from the book, let me know in the comments below and I can look into making a part 2. Once again, thanks for watching and catch you in the next one.